Hi, I'm Allie. Join me to make these layered chain bracelets featuring some chain link and wire, as well as beading cable too. If you need any of those supplies, look below the video in the description. We'll put links there to our site to gather everything up. Get your pliers, your supplies, and get ready to get started. So as you see, I've got a lot of materials out on my tray here. This is really a mixed media project where you're doing a couple different styles of beading. We're going to be doing regular stringing with some beading cable. We are going to be using some wire to do some bending. And then we also have on here our clasps, some crimp beads. We have some wire guards. You can choose to use that or not. I have a bead stopper here also to help me in it. And then we have 3 sets of pliers. You want to use your round nose, wire cutter, and needle nose plier. To begin this bracelet, we are going to begin by thinking about what we want our color range to be. So this one here, I want to mix metals. I've got the rose gold, gold, and silver. I'm keeping a little bit more fall tone here and just doing that brassy gold look and bronze in my mirrored rounds. And then I also have my wire in my bronze. We're going to begin by learning some wire skills, and then we're going to go into basic stringing. So the first thing that we're going to start out with is our wire. I'm choosing to use 24 gauge in the vintage bronze. In my sample piece, I use 22 gauge. Anything from 20 down to 24 is going to be my recommendation for this. I have about a 10-inch piece cut that I'll work off of, and I went through my mookaite. I love using mixed strands for this because if you want to get all of that red look, pick all of that red look. I still have so many beads to pick from in my package. The same for this beautiful agate. Switched and picked a mixed palette, but if you want to go all green, then you can make it all purple. I'm using 6mm beads, and I'm going to start out with my needle nose pliers. And these, or chain nose pliers, I'm going to hold about 1/2 inch down, and I'm going to bend my wire to the side. Grab your round nose pliers. We're just doing chain link, and I'm going to make the links about halfway in my round nose pliers. That long piece of wire is going to line up straight with your chest when you're holding it up. Short piece of wire, straight out through the back. This is your view from your bird's eye view. Your wire, then your short piece, is going to come over the top till it hits on the other side. Once it hits on the other side, watch my hand, rotate your hand. So you notice I'm opening up the pliers as I'm rotating my hand because I don't want to pull the wire. And I'm making sure the wire stays back on the round nose pliers till it can't go back any further because I've already established most of my loop. From here, I'm going to bend the wire, the short piece, back underneath the pliers, back up to 90 degrees. When I take it off then, I have this eye pin, which is going to be a loop that extends directly off of my wire. I'm going to hold that eye pin with my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to wrap that wire as if this is a man laying down in bed, and I'm wrapping his scarf around his neck to keep his neck warm, or to strangle him if he's not been very nice. Go in here, and you're going to cut off that extra wire. I like to do 3 turns there, and I have that little loop on there. Now I'm going to put my first bead on, let that fall down next to my coiled wire section, and then I'm going to coil on the opposite end. Now you will notice that you have a little bit of a tail there. Let that tail alone. It's going to be easier to pinch that tail down once we have this other side done. So now what I'm going to do is bend the wire as well, just like I did, holding that loop to the side so that way the loops go the same direction. I'm going to leave just enough room to do those coils right above the bead. Turn my pliers to the side. The long piece of wire now is coming straight out from the back. That bead is in my bird's eye view, right coming out between my eyes basically. The wire is going to go over the top of the round nose pliers till it hits the bead. Watch those hands, switch from the top jaw to the bottom jaw, and take that wire back 90 degrees. So we start with 90 and we end with 90. Hold that man's head from the nose up with your chain nose pliers, and then coil once, twice, 3 times down on the bead, and do then a little snip. Now obviously I have more wire because I have more chain link to do, but I'm going to go in now to make sure my ends are down and just pinch those down right against the project with your chain nose pliers. There you go. That is link number 1. To do link number 2, we are going to start out the same way, taking your chain nose, bending to the side, going in there with those loops. And we have other videos I'll put in the description of the product and links to other videos, making that loop. Before I coil, I am linking this bead into that loop. From there, so did you see how I did that? A little slower. Take that loop, put it on the short piece of the wire, and it'll just click in to that little loop. Now my man has long hair, so it's a little bit harder to hold him. So sometimes you'll want to hold with your round nose pliers, just letting his hair dangle down, and still do that coiled scarf around his neck. 1, 2, 3. It's always better to have a little bit of extra wire and not poke your fingers. Take your wire cutter flat side down, cut off that extra wire, grab my next bead that I have laid out in a pretty color order. Once again, grab your chain nose pliers, bend right above, round nose pliers in to make my loop over the top, switch from the top to the bottom. I'm doing this quickly so you can see how quickly this can be done once you learn. 1, 2, 3, and then cut off that extra wire. There you go. From here again, before moving on to the next one so it doesn't grab on any of your clothes, go in and pinch that end down. If you have a lot of trouble pinching that end down, chances are you can probably cut it a little closer. So get back in with your cutters and do a little bit closer of a snip. Go ahead and add the length that you need for your bracelet. Now, depending on what clasp you're using, that can take up a fair amount of space on your bracelet. We're going to be using our link system actually to link all of our strands. We're going to do 5. We're going to link those all together and use that linking system to link onto the clasp. So if you want to, just to get an idea, lay out one of your links in your beads, but you're going to end up with a good 1 to 1.5 inches of clasp or closure. So keep that in mind. I'm going to be doing a total of 8 beads all linked together and then keeping 2 for that outer edge. So I'm going to link the rest of these together, about 8, and then we'll go on and keep continuing to create. Once you have your chain link section completed, and remember we're going to be adding length with that figure 8 clasp, I want you to cut 2 pieces of chain, 1 or 2. In my sample piece, I just did 1 of that pretty rectangular chain. I decided for this piece I'm going to do 2. From here, I am going to get ready to add some crystals for a little bit of bling and some of my microfiber round or micro-faceted rounds. I have those in 4mm and 3mm that I'll be adding to the strand. Now I want to string these, but I want to attach them right on to where I'm closing it off or where I'm attaching to. So after cutting the wire, as well as cutting the chain and doing all of that, I'm going to go in and take a new little piece of wire. If you already have a piece, great. I'm going to take my first bead here. I'm going to do like I've normally been doing, but I'm going to make the loop a little bit bigger, going back a little bit further on the plier. From here, rather than linking onto something else, I'm going to slide on the connection of chain, then my chain link that I've created, and then chain again. I'm going to coil this, holding just like normal, coiling. And the reason I'm making this bigger is because I still have 2 more strands to attach to it. Snip this off, put on my next round bead. Now you can make this anything. You can make it your gemstone, you can make it your crystal, kind of up to you what you want to use as a connector. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to bend to the side with my round nose pliers. That's a little cheat that you don't have to pick up your chain nose. And I'm going to make my loop once, and I'm going to spin around the whole time to make my loop twice. I'm actually going to separate that out a little bit, adding in my clasp. I'm going to kind of take it around almost like a keychain, linking that into both. If you want to, you can actually do this as you're coiling it. But once you get that into, there's my 1 link, I'm going to pull it around again, put it into that second link, because it popped out. So I'm just going to take this chain, go like that. With the 22 gauge wire, I just did once. And pull that wire, linking that loop around 1 more time. Once I have that around 1 more time and it's moving comfortably, I'm going to twist that wire right around the bead like normal. From here then, I'm going to cut off my extra wire and pinch down that end a little bit. This is a great spot too to make sure before you do the other end that this is about the right size by the time you add the loop on the other side to make the clasp, or whether or not you made it a little bit too big and want to take one off. From here, go ahead and pinch that closed. Make sure this is moving comfortably in there. And then we're going to go in and we are going to get ready to do our strands of our beads and hook them on to this little eye pin that we've created. So our next strand in this process is going to be added with beading cable or beading wire. It's a stainless steel wire with a nylon coating, so it's going to be different than your actual bendable craft or jeweler's wire. I have a piece cut here, and you can see I've already done one strand of crystals just to kind of brighten it up. And I'm going to put on a crimp bead. This is a 2 by 2 millimeter crimp bead I'm sticking on the wire. I'm going to go to the opposite end of that loop of my clasp link, bend the wire around at the very end of that loop. If you want it towards the interior, you can do so as well. Bend that wire back upon that crimp tube. See how it just has a little bit of space there. Grab your needle nose or chain nose pliers, oops, and simply squash that down flat. If you want to, you can add a crimp cover to this. Because there's a lot going on, you really won't see it. From here, I'm going to string everything, and then just like I did here with the wire or with the bead stopper, I'm going to add all the beads, and I'm not crimping yet or making the end until I make sure all of these sit correctly. That's one of the tricky things with this bracelet styles, making sure they all end at the same point. Like right away, I think I have too many crystals on there, but we'll make our loop, making sure then that they don't kind of intermingle and one hangs down really long. I'm going to open up my mirrored round 4 millimeters, and I'm just stringing them on right one after the other. These smaller ones really sparkle and shine like crazy and work as a really nice complement to the crystals. When you add your beads, that wire that remains there at the end, that doubled over wire, you're just going to take your beads and feed both wires through your beads. If they stick out anywhere, we'll take care of that process at the very end by cutting off any little extra strands that we have. So go ahead and add in all of your beads right in a line. Once I get it to the same length as my chain and my chain link, I'll put a bead stopper on it, and then we'll make the loop on the opposite side to work as the clasp closure and to line everything up. After you're done stringing your strands of beads, I want you to come in and create your loop for the end of your project. So just like we did to the other side, and I'm ignoring the strands right now. I have them pushed to the top and the bottom, and I have my loop created that I made. And I'm going to make sure that my chains sit in order because I don't want them to twist on the bracelet. But honestly, they'll twist. It's just going to happen. So don't worry too much. But I'm trying to get the exact same order of things from one side to the other. I'm going to make that link and that loop. And then I'm going to coil that extra wire. If you have more chain, you have more links, you can totally put that in there. This is also a cute place to put some charms if you want charms in there. From here, I'm going to pick up the last of my mookaite beads. Again, you can use whichever ones you want. And just like we did on the other side, we're going to bend that wire to the side, make 2 big loops. 1, circling around to 2. Right there, you should have put in your clasp if you're doing that. If you want, you can even use one of the links of chain that you cut off to be the thing to link to. I'm making a loop just for the clasp to directly link onto. Once I have that loop there, and I know that it is big enough for my loop to loop on, I'm going to go in and hold that down, coil that extra wire, 1, 2, 3, and then since I have the wire on there, I'm just going to get a little fancy and take that wire over and around the bead so it just has a little extra stability there, and wrap and coil 1 time on the opposite side. Cutting off that extra wire, and then once again, since this one is done, going in and just pinching that down, making sure that my wire is not going to jab me anywhere. From here, I'm going to go in now and make sure, straightening this out, that when I have it and I'm doing the strands, that they're matching up and they are equally ending with my clasp. So go ahead and if you need to and kind of flatten out your chain. See how I'm kind of flattening everything out? I have 2 little extra links that I did cut off because it got a little long. I'll keep these for earrings. Those will look great for little earring components. So I'm going to go in here and say, yep, this crystal is good, or it needs like 2 more crystals. Keep in mind, I'm going to put my crimp cover or my crimp on. So I'm going to add my crimp. I'm going to look at my chain, look at my link, make sure I'm going to the opposite side, feed my wire through that loop, feed it back through my crimp tube, back through some beads if you can. If you can't, not a big deal. It will hold. Bring that wire out, pull the wire, push the crimp bead down. It's like a give and take game. I like to hold the crimp bead down in place where it should be, and then I pull the extra wire with the pliers. If I need to, I'll even hold that wire right afterwards and pull that extra wire there. You want it to be nice and tight that you don't see a lot of extra wire, but not too tight that your beads don't move around. Flatten that out with that chain nose plier, and then just cut it down nice and tight. I'm going to do the same thing now on the opposite end, making sure, kind of just give it a little pull, making sure that my bead strand is long enough, grabbing my plier or my crimp bead, making sure I'm going to the opposite side of my link here. If you wanted to, you could have also made all of those links connect directly to the clasp and then connect to one of the loops too. That's up to you, rather than pairing them all together. I'm going to take it through a couple beads, let that wire poke on out, pull the extra wire just like I did previously with the other side, pushing that bead and that bead, crimp bead down, holding the beads, and then pulling that extra wire. I find that to be the best way to tighten that up. Go ahead and then flat crimp that down with your chain nose pliers. You can use a crimping plier too if you want. That's up to you. Cutting off that extra, and then you have your completed bracelet. When you put it on, those will kind of stack all over, but I love how the chain kind of stays to the middle. You get that nice look to it, and you get that nice design, whether or not you're going a little bit lighter and just one piece of chain, some smaller beads, or if you're going multiple pieces of chain and some bigger beads as well. And it's going to have fun laying on the wrist and giving that nice layered look with just one thing to put on. Thanks so much for joining me for this layered chain bracelet. I just wanted to bring to your attention also, not only does it look great as a bracelet, but you can also use it as a necklace too, or make several and link them together. Remember, if you do need any supplies, go ahead and look below the video in the description, and make sure to post your versions of the layered chain bracelet in our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. As always, thank you so much for joining me, and stay tuned for our next inspirational design.